afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Quartz Ready Cash Business Survivor webinar series. My name is Kalila Reynolds, and I'm your host for this afternoon. I'm also joined by Jermaine Bryan, who's an award-winning business development strategist. His focus is on building entrepreneurial capacity in Jamaica's MSME sector. It's our pleasure to be here with you today to answer your questions and to point out a bunch of cool stuff, really important stuff. But first, let me ask Jermaine to tell me a little bit about himself. Hi, Jermaine. How are you?
Hi, Kalia. I'm good.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Hi, Jamaica. I think you've said everything.
No, there are more things to be said about you, Jermaine. Don't be humble.
I've been doing this for some time. I've been doing this for about 5 years now. Working with micro, small, medium-sized enterprises to help them build out strategy to gain a foothold in the marketplace.
You work with JBDC,
Yes.
Mona School of Business.
Yes, I'm a business development advisor to the JBDC, but I also lecture part-time at UWI.
Okay, yeah, so this guy knows his stuff. He knows exactly what he's talking about. So we're promising to have a very informative and engaging discussion. Recently, Quartz Ready Cash started offering loans to small businesses like yours and like mine. And it's a unique product that offers not just a financial solution, but well-needed support to build capacity and also to scale up. So this is one way that Quartz Ready Cash is connecting with the business community with the hope of adding value to its day-to-day operations for the long haul. Now, tonight we provide even more support. Many of you have struggled to keep yourselves afloat as a result of the impact of the global pandemic. Challenges may vary in type and magnitude, but this series is aimed at arming micro businesses with the tools to survive. So here we have it. The topic for today is price and profit. 6 ways. 6 ways to price and profit. We saw your questions at the last webinar, so we know that you're eager to hear about these 6 ways of costing and making a profit, and we want this to be an exciting and informative discussion. So please leave your comments and your questions in the chat, and we'll respond to them before the end of the session. Now, before we dive into things, I also need to let you know that one lucky viewer will receive a $50,000 Quartz shopping voucher. But you have to talk to us in the chat and stay tuned to the end for a chance to win. Additionally, we also have an announcement of a winner of a free business consultation. Super, super valuable. And this winner is going to be one of our special viewers who registered early and submitted his or her questions. Are you that lucky person who will be a winner tonight? Well, stay tuned to find out. So, Jermaine, we know that the pandemic has changed a lot, and we're seeing prices of all sorts of commodities just starting to soar, right? It's just going up. And many business owners are wondering how to effectively price their goods and services while still making a profit.
Yeah.
So how should we price what we're selling, and how can one go about doing this?
Okay, well, I think people are looking at pricing as the problem when pricing is really a symptom of maybe a bigger problem, which may lie in their business. So I would encourage everybody listening, everybody watching that is in a panic right now, wondering how am I going to pivot, how am I going to adjust in this post-pandemic era, to take a look inwards. Start by revisiting the fundamentals, looking at your customer, trying to understand who your customer is, building out a customer profile to figure out if your current value proposition, your current products or services are in fact responding to their pain points. And then after doing that now, I'd recommend you look at your business model. Your business model is, just for short, essentially a way of arranging your assumptions about your business. Because even though you're in business and you're selling, you're really making guesses. Every single day you go out and you make a sale, you're guessing that somebody will buy this thing that I'm selling. So now that you're in a panic and you're trying to figure out what to do next, try to revisit your business model to see if your guesses, to see if your assumptions are being proven, to see which ones are not tested as yet, and try doing some testing in the marketplace. Importantly, revisiting a business model will also involve a revision of your cost structure. Because we're talking about pricing,
Right.
we can't fail to mention costing. So revisiting the business model now will allow you to see what your cost structures are, what your cost assumptions are, so that when you're testing in the market now, you begin to see where you fall in the spectrum of competition. Yeah. So testing now will reveal two things. It will either confirm your costing assumptions or disprove them and send you back to the lab to retool and test again. But importantly, what it should do is also give you a deeper understanding of what your price elasticity is. So I know that sounds like a technical term, and I'm not going to lecture tonight. But price elasticity.
Let's think about elastic, right?
So
how stretchable is your price?
So is how stretchable your price is. So price elasticity is a relationship that exists between the demand for your good and service and your price. So some products and services, depending on the nature of them, will change. It will change either proportionally or inversely to price. So when you think about gas, for example, and what's happening in Ukraine, that situation threw the West in a frenzy, and one of the resulting I want to say outcomes of that were gas prices went up.
Right.
And some people in observing what's happening were very strategic in either buying their gas before the crisis got to a point, or just choosing not to buy gas at all. So gas is an example of a product that has a very stretchy price elasticity. But then you have other products like water, light, bare essentials. We can't do without these. So we don't have the luxury of changing to an alternative if the price goes up.
Yeah, there's no alternative to water.
Right. So unfortunately you have to just work with it.
Right.
So to bring it back, the focus on the business model now will reveal where you fall on that spectrum of price elasticity, and then put you in a better position to now determine what pricing is best for you, or what cocktail of pricing strategies are best for you.
So the basic thing is, you mentioned some of the inputs that go into your business. Yeah. You got to cover your inputs in terms of your pricing. So you have to make sure that you price good or well enough or high enough that it covers all your expenses. And that's basic.
Yeah, that's basic.
So that's number one. What else do we have? And what is that called? Is there a name for that type of pricing?
Oh, well, that's cost-based pricing. And cost-based pricing pays attention to the cost of production, distribution, and it's actually one of the more accessible pricing strategies and one of the more popular ones. You might hear people talk about markup, and a markup on your product or service. Standard markup people usually applies between 40 and 60%. So that has its advantages because it's easy to calculate, but it's also disadvantageous because it doesn't pay attention to competition, and it doesn't account for any changes that may happen in the demand for the good or service.
Well, there's a lot of flexibility between that 40 and 60%, right?
Yeah.
So one, you have to account for, let's say you are importing goods for resale. You have to account for the cost you paid for it, the shipping costs, the import duty, and your staff costs, whatever that is. And then you add the 40 to 60% on top of it.
Right. But it also depends, Kalila, on the market that you're operating in, which is why I started with the framework for people to understand that if you're trying to price, you have to understand your framework, you have to understand your market. Because even though you might have your import duties, your staff, your rent, everything that you need to account for, depending on the marketplace that you're operating in, you may have an advantage to price premium or to price at mid-range or to price low. It all depends on the market.
So how do you know when you have that type of advantage?
You know by doing your research and by
Mhm.
testing, putting the product in the marketplace and observing which customers respond to it. And from that response, now you'll know how to tailor, um, or you know which strategies you need to pull for to respond to different demands in the marketplace.
Okay. So you mentioned that you could have a premium pricing, or you may have to go a little bit lower depending on the market, depending on what industry you are in. There's also something known as freemium pricing. Jermaine, we were talking about this behind the scenes. What is freemium?
Right. So freemium, the term freemium, it's pretty obvious. It's a pricing method where you offer a set of services for free and then make uh, a certain, or so you offer a set of services for free, and then you charge a premium to access additional services.
Mm.
So I want you to think about Hope Gardens. And by the way, freemium tends to apply mostly to service-based businesses, even though there are isolated cases like, if you go market and you buy crops, a man might say, taste and buy.
Mhm.
That's an example of a freemium pricing strategy. You're getting a little grape for free, you're getting this thing to taste for free, and you decide if you want to buy it thereafter.
Mhm.
But Hope Gardens now,
Devon House does it too. You get
Devon
to
House
taste
do
the
it.
different flavors and choose.
Exactly. But with Hope Gardens, you and everybody is able to go to Hope Gardens to sit, enjoy themselves. But if you want to go over, I think it's a Chinese
Benevolent Gardens. Uh-huh.
yes, you have to pay a premium. And Hope Gardens, they're very deliberate in devoting certain resources to the upkeep of those gardens so that they're especially beautiful
Mhm.
compared to the rest of the gardens. So that's an example. You ever playing a game on your phone before, and the free basic version is fine.
Yes.
You're playing I think I play this game with
Candy
my
Crush.
Candy Crush or Free Fire, or there are different games that you can play. And if you need to buy a weapon, or you need to buy a new
Power up or
power up
something.
or
Yeah.
whatever, you pay a little extra.
Vile
to
clothes
get
for your
it.
avatars.
Yeah.
Just the kids know all about this. Make sure they don't have your passwords because they will run up your bill. Another example is Zoom, which you are accessing right now.
Mhm.
It's free to use Zoom, but if you want to go over the 40 minutes in your meeting, then you have to pay for the premium service. So that's another strategy that you could employ if you're in a service-based business, especially, you said, right, Jermaine?
Mhm.
You could entice customers with a free version
Yeah.
or the light version, that
Mhm.
like what they do on the apps, the
Mhm.
light version, and then make the premium services available at a cost.
Mhm.
So there's something also called value-based pricing.
Yeah.
Now, what's that?
So value based is all about perception. There are some people out there that will pay a premium for perception. I'll give you an example. So when I'm heading home on a daily basis, I traverse Trafalgar Road and then cross that intersection over to Waterloo.
Mhm.
So you have two peanut man. You have one peanut man where you have to say Theme Territoria intersection to Trafalgar going back to New Kingston. And they have a next one. His territory is the intersection to Waterloo going upwards. So I suspect that the guy who controls Waterloo is able to charge $150 for his peanut, because his peanut has nice branding on it, and he has branded shirts, and he has probably theorized, tested, and even proven that the people who cross the intersection to go that direction are more appreciative of the perception of a more superior peanut product, so they would pay the $150. But the people on Trafalgar now who are either going up Hope Road or going to Half a Tree might ball for the extra $50. So the guy controlling Trafalgar only charge $100. And I've noticed them every single day. Them never butt heads before. Them kind of have an understanding, say, This is my territory, and that is your territory. But the guy on Waterloo, he's able to charge 50% more than the guy on Trafalgar because of value-based pricing.
Right.
So he created a perception of a superior product, and consequently,
Even if it's the same product,
even if it's
the
same
exact
product,
same peanut,
even if
just
it's
in
the
a
same
nicer looking package.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Another example. There's this salon that I went to some weeks ago, Totally Male,
Mm-hmm.
and they charged me $3,000 for a trim. Trim, facial massage, all of that. And I thought to myself, would the typical Jamaican spend $3,000? Especially the typical young person spend $3,000 to trim when there are barbershops in the community where you can get a trim for 500 or 800 and sometimes $1,000 too steep. That's another example of value-based pricing. So
what did Totally Meal offer you that made it more valuable, that made you willing to pay more?
Well, they offer an experience. So it's interesting because the entire staff is female. And, Jamaican man, we love our females. So the idea of a woman trimming you and taking care of you and, bringing you into your handsomeness.
Look at him smiling, just remembering the experience.
I remember the experience, So bringing you into your handsomeness for 30 minutes to an hour will entice some men to pay the premium. As opposed to, your community barbershop where, you have to, the chair, not smiling and, to keep the thing serious. So that's an example of how Totally Male was able to take advantage. And big up Totally Male, by the way. They were able to take advantage of a perception that they think a certain clientele of men may have in the marketplace and exploit it.
That's so true. Yes, we do find that we're willing to pay a little bit more for a more pleasant experience. This could apply even at a market stall.
Yeah.
If your stall just nicer, much cleaner than everybody else around you, people will be attracted to it. And you can even charge a little bit more based on that.
Yep.
So we do have an opportunity for you to ask questions, and we would like you to leave your questions in the chat so that Jermaine can address those questions. And remember that we also have that incentive for you to ask questions. We also have our prizes coming up at the end, including a $50,000 Quartz shopping voucher and also a business consultation package. But you need to be posting your comments and asking your questions in the chat in order to be eligible to win. So far we've covered 3 pricing strategies. We've gone over cost-based pricing. So that's making sure that you cover all your costs, all your inputs, and then adding a markup on that. We've looked at freemium pricing, which is simply giving something for free in order to attract somebody to your premium service. And we've also looked at value-based pricing, which involves adding additional value to your product to make it more attractive and making people more willing to pay a little bit more for your product or service. So we have a question in the chat, and this question comes from Michael Latchman. Michael says, is it wise to drop profit margins to get more sales turnover?
Michael, is it wise to drop
profit margins in order to get more sales?
To get more sales. I mean,
so go cheaper, so sell more.
Yeah, you might be onto something, Michael, because that's actually one of the strategies that we want to cover this evening, which is penetration pricing. So it is possible if you're very strategic and if, again, you know your market and know your customer, it's possible for you to temporarily suspend your profit expectations to undercut the market, because consumers are very simple, them like affordable things, and in a crisis like a pandemic, which I can imagine will have a lot of people on the edge now trying to figure out how to do something different to stay competitive. It's a worthwhile undertaking, but my advice is, before you consider it, check with your business. Make sure, say, the systems are running smoothly. Make sure say your customer is still a customer shaky, you know. A customer before the pandemic, you have to be a customer after the pandemic. So ensure that all of those things are in place before you consider.
I think the key word that you said, Jermaine, is temporarily.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you should implement forever. You
Mhm.
know those stores that you go to that have sale painted on the window?
Yep.
It's always a sale, so it's not really a sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what Michael is alluding to is basically the concept of a sale. So you
Mhm.
offer a sale, you offer a lower price for a period of time,
Mhm.
and then you can come back. Sales have worked great for me. Every time I do a sale, oh, trust me, the numbers come in. We get the
Okay.
volumes.
Mhm.
All right, so we have another question. What would be the best cost strategy for a service-driven company?
The best cost strategy for service driven. Well, definitely not cost based. Traditionally, cost based seems to work better with product based businesses.
Mhm.
I think depending on the service that you're offering, you could play with freemium pricing. Because freemium pricing allows you the latitude to seduce your customer. Give them a little piece of it.
I'll give you another example.
Yeah, man.
Free consultation.
Exactly. Like what Courts is doing now. So free consultation, you probably have to pay a premium for that. Otherwise, you get to sit
Yeah.
down with your advisor and go through your hopes and dreams and decide how much money you want, borrow from them. And then
And if your experience at the consultation is really good,
Yeah.
you end up buying the full service.
exactly.
I got that a couple of times. One time was pest control.
Mhm.
They came to my house and they did the assessment for free
Okay.
and tell me what and what you're going to need. And then what you do is, if you agree with them, then you book their service to actually do the extermination. And then another time was when I was doing a website.
Yeah.
I got a free consultation with a website developer who
Mhm.
asked me a whole bunch of questions. And I was so impressed with the developer because they got me to think about what my business really needs,
Yeah.
that I hired the developer to build the website, which is a big money.
Yeah.
You know, so free consultation, that's a great example of freemium pricing.
And if you are a startup that's offering a service, you could also consider penetration pricing.
What's that now? Penetration
Um,
pricing.
So penetration is really a way of attracting customers to your product or service by deliberately pricing below market. A couple firms locally have done it and done it successfully. iCool, for one. Remember water did around the place?
Uh-huh.
And then iCool come in with iCool water, iCool juices, and all of a sudden, them have competition.
Right. It was cheaper.
Yes.
And then
because
did they
it's
raise
cheap,
the price after?
And then they raise the price over time. So now them kind of balance off and more competitive with other juice brands in the market.
I remember Claro did it when Claro came out to
Yes.
compete with Digicel.
Yes.
And their prices were like rock bottom, and so many people flocked to Claro, and
Yeah.
then eventually the prices go back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's penetration, but you have to have money to do penetration pricing. You, have to be willing to take a loss for a while, right?
You have to. So that's why I say it is a startup. Because if you're a startup, then the assumption is that your costs are probably not much in the beginning. So you can probably take the risk and suffer the small margin in exchange for more share in the marketplace. And then over time, as you build brand loyalty and scale, then you can take a little time, bump up the price. But by then you'll have these people, your customers, being your best friends and your advocates, and it might be too difficult for them to turn back and go somewhere else.
So I would have thought, because I feel like startups more need every little percentage of margin that they can get, depending on how well capitalized the startup is, how well funded you are as a startup. So I would have thought maybe it's for a new product. So, for example, the iCool by Lasco. Lasco has a ton of other products. They're a big company, but they're launching a new product, and so they can afford to take the L on this one product for a while. Yeah.
So it's very subjective, as Khalil alluded to.
All right. So that's penetration pricing. I see we have another question in the chat. Oh, a few more questions. I love it. Keep the questions coming. So Troy says, what is a good percentage for profit margin? I think Troy joined us a little bit late, but you can go over that. Percentages for profit margin.
Yeah, Troy. So, I mean, The standard is 60/40. So you want to be spending 40% on your costs, but making around 50 to 60% margin. That's ideal. So yeah, that pretty much
60/40.
60/40.
Okay, 60% profit. Do many businesses actually achieve that? Because that sounds kind of high.
Yeah, well, you can flip it too. You can flip it to, again, it depends on the market, depends on your positioning, it depends on where you are on the spectrum and what you need to do to stay competitive. So if it means wrestling with the 40 until you're in a position to bump up to 60, then we do that. Or if it means comfortably, or rather if it means not overspending, but if it means spending more on your costs to be at 60 but charge at 40 so that you stay competitive, then you can do that as well.
All right. Jordan wants to know, Jermaine, what are your thoughts on price discrimination? First of all, what does that even mean? Price discrimination.
Yeah, so price discrimination now is a concept that Jamaicans are notorious for price discrimination. When you look at Bashco and Azans, two firms that are actually owned by the same family, but the prices downtown Bashco are interestingly a little bit cheaper than the prices uptown at Azans.
And some of the same products.
And it's the same product. Sometimes you look upon them and you see the mega value stamp on at the back. That's because geographically, Bashco anticipates that a certain demographic will attend to the Bashco stores with a certain level of purchasing power. So they're going to price accordingly, maybe take a little drop in at the margins, but in exchange, they benefit from volume because the cheaper prices attract a lot of people. But uptown now, which is Crossroads not really uptown, but uptown, they can afford to keep the prices at that level and sometimes even push it up further because they anticipate again that a certain demographic will be attending to the Azan stores that don't attend to the Bashco stores. So price discrimination is simply taking into account the geography of your customers and then pricing accordingly.
The same thing, if I go to market right now, me get the broad lady price.
Yes.
I have to send somebody else go market because they charge me more.
Yes, Khalil, I go get the pretty brown lady price if she go market. But if and it also depends, because it depends on how you even carry yourself to Khalil.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you carry yourself like you're brand new downtown, they're gonna give you brand new prices.
Mm-hmm.
But if you carry yourself like a regular now, like somebody who know the streets, one thing, vendors smart, and very intuitive, and them read you up long before you come at them start and them know what to tell you. So if you want to counter price discrimination as a customer, you can pay attention to how you report yourself, because that can influence the price of people.
All right, so that's what price discrimination is.
Mm-hmm.
The question was, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think it can work. I think it's people might see it as exploitation, but you have to think about it. Enterprise is a form of exploitation. It's taking advantage of weaknesses and gaps in the marketplace for profit. So where you see the opportunities to price discriminate, I would encourage you to do so.
Okay. So if you know people have a little bit more to spend or a little bit less, depending on the market that you're in, prices can be flexible. The next question comes from, let's see, where are we? That was Jordan. Dana Lynn, I think that's how you said the name. Dana Lynn Suebi says, should a startup use competitive pricing as a way to gain market share? I think we just went over that, no?
Yeah, we actually did. And by the way, good evening, Dana Lynn. You can. I mean, if you're going into a marketplace that is saturated, you can deploy competitive pricing, because competitive pricing, is not really pricing at the level of a competition only. It's using the price of a competition as a benchmark to either price up or price below, but not too far up and not too far below, just around the center there, so that customers see you as a viable option.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to gain the loyalty.
Exactly.
Right.
To gain the loyalty.
Gain those loyal customers. Check them out from somebody else so that they can remain loyal to you.
Yep.
All right. The next question comes from Aisha, who wants to know, this is an interesting one.
Mhm.
How do you remain competitive with excessive customs duties?
Why, Aisha, I think we might need a guest from customs up here to answer that one. How do you remain competitive with excessive customs duties?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so customs duties, naturally, they're excessive. They're going to put pressure on your bottom line. And you, as an entrepreneur, will now have to confront the ethical dilemma. Do I pass that cost on to my customers, or do I absorb it? Depending on the age of the business and the relationship you have with your customers, I think you can get away with passing it on to them.
Don't you have to, though? Because you have to pay that cost.
Yeah.
It's a part of your cost of doing business.
It's a part of your cost, but some businesses get away with passing it on completely to the customer. And some absorb it as a way to, again, build loyalty.
Right. I think one of the advantages of having a business in Jamaica, as opposed to me saying, oh, I could just buy the same thing online, is that you can get it now. You don't have to wait. So if you're in a situation where you need something urgently, you can get it now. You can touch and feel it. You can come to courts and see the quality of the table that they're selling. And you're not sure, like if you're ordering something online, you might not know what the quality is just by looking at it. And you can walk out of the store today with the item. You can't get online. So you could post those benefits to your customers and letting them know, yes, you may be able to get an item cheaper online, but you have the advantage by shopping locally of immediacy and being able to test the quality. You can try on the clothes before you buy it. How many times you shop at Fashion Nova or somewhere, and then the item comes and it doesn't fit properly, it doesn't fit, it doesn't look right, the fabric is coming apart, the seams coming apart. But if you buy locally, you get the advantage of being able to test it for yourself. So those are benefits that you can push to your customers.
And Kalila, before we move on, you mentioned online, and I want to impress upon everybody watching this evening to take the digital economy seriously. We see what's happening in banking. We see the access that is being afforded now to regular consumers to participate in e-commerce. And that should signal to you as an entrepreneur that we can't just be doing the direct selling traditional business model anymore. We need to take advantage of the online presence. But importantly, having a website as an option for shopping, fragmenting the customer experience in that way, could be a way to get around that concern that she has. Because maybe you could package or repackage the direct selling experience as a premium experience as opposed to the online, and then charge them accordingly. Yeah, so it's like, for example, if you are buying a shoes online, you're buying a Clarks from Clarks in the UK, the expectation is that you're going to pay your shipping and handling for that Clarks if you want it to come to Jamaica. But if you buy it locally through a dealer, then you cut out all of that.
The price is the price.
The price is the price.
There's nothing additional that you have to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that immediacy. If I need some today, that immediacy comes at a premium.
Yeah.
Being able to walk out the store with it on the same day. Yeah. All right, so we've gone over quite a bit already, Jermaine, but we still have some more pricing strategies that we can go over, because there's so many different ways that you can price your good or service. One of them is competition-based pricing, and you alluded to it earlier in the introduction. What is competition-based pricing?
Right. So as I think I mentioned it briefly. It's a pricing method that involves you using the competition and how the competition prices as a benchmark. So vendors in the marketplace, they do this a lot, particularly the crab vendors out by Hero Circle. I understand that they have kind of like a cooperative going where, all of them kind of agree, say, this is the price that we're going to be selling crab at. Vendors in the marketplace sometimes do the same thing. The jerkman them, out of Harborview or on North Side, kind of do the same thing. Everybody have an understanding, say, yo, man and man will not have a charge under or over a certain amount. But that's in a special case where you have a market where the competitors are so close together that them can actually converse. In other industries like retail, for example, supermarkets don't exactly call each other to find out how you are pricing this week or how you're going to be pricing on a monthly. So in cases like that, if you're in retail, like you have a little shop or you have a little store where sell food, then you have to pay attention to your customer, because customers, people, when them are top up on a weekly basis, them very price sensitive. So them now look for spend no whole heap of money. Them probably spend the most of the money there at the beginning of the month out of the budget already. So when them go supermarket a week time, I'm just looking to top up. So competition-based pricing in that context exists because the supermarkets, in understanding that this is how their customer thinks, will try to set a price that they believe is still on par with what the price will be right across the board.
Yeah. And that goes if you're selling similar products.
Yeah.
But if you're doing the value-based now, so you might be a dressmaker and I'm a dressmaker, but my dress costs more than yours because my dress look better than yours. Yeah. If I offer a superior product, then I can do value-based pricing. I think we have another question. We have a couple new questions. Michael wants to know, should we price based on location or based on quality? Because usually it shows up over time in sales and might end up losing.
On the sound kind of loaded.
And I might need a little bit more clarity on that question, Michael. What usually shows up over time, right? So should we price based on location or based on quality? Because usually it shows up over time in sales. What shows up over time? Let's give us some clarity in the chat on that question. And let's move on to the next question. Oh, the next question is gone. All right, so we'll come back to that one shortly, Michael, after you give us some clarity on what you mean there. And then we have another type of pricing, and we went over this already as well, the penetration pricing. So let's just go back over what penetration pricing is.
Right. So penetration pricing, you're trying to penetrate the marketplace. You're trying to prepare your product or service to enter with the best chances of being successful. As I mentioned earlier, customers, if you really study their behavior, they're very simple. They like affordability. So penetration pricing is founded on that principle of affordability. Setting a price below what the market is currently offering as a way to entice or attract people to purchase.
Right. All right. So let's go over some of the pros and cons of some of these various types of pricing. So when we look at value-based, and a lot of people seem to be interested in the value-based type of pricing. We spoke about as well competition pricing. People are, based on the comments, people are very interested in learning more about that. And the cost-based pricing being your basic, making sure you cover your costs. So looking at cost versus value-based, Jermaine, what are the pros and cons of each? So how do you decide which one is better for your business?
All right. Well, cost base is very simple to calculate. Once you have a formula, if you say you're going to be charging 30% markup on all your products, then it's a 30% markup on all your products. For to sort of compare that now to value based, you mentioned. So the advantage with value based now is that you are able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. So a lot of times when people pursue it is when they realize that the product is getting homogeneous, meaning everybody are try
Sell the
package
same
and
thing.
yeah, you know, when you think about Island Grill, you know, Island Grill, Talia Chin, entered
Lynn.
as Lynn, Talia Lynn. She entered a space, she entered an industry that was not brand new. Man, I sell pan chicken for years, but she differentiated herself by adding a new packaging to the pan chicken. She put it in a pretty box. She gave a pretty sauce, and she put it in a nice, pretty restaurant. And that was the value, that was the perception that she created around this popular Jamaican street food that people were buying long before Island Grill. You know, so going back to cost base, another advantage, our cost-based pricing also allows you to test products that you're not so sure about, products and services. So you remember earlier I mentioned your business model and the importance of knowing the business model and testing the assumptions in the business model. The best way sometimes to get into the market, to see how the market responds or flexes with a product, a new product or service, is to do cost-based, because you might not have the capital or the capacity to absorb the loss with a penetration pricing, but at least with cost pricing, you're still able to pay your expenses and make a little markup on top of it.
One of our viewers asked earlier about price discrimination. Is this the same as dynamic pricing?
No.
All right. What's dynamic pricing now?
All right. So dynamic pricing is like seasonal pricing. So it's usually when you price in response to a particular episode or a particular season or a particular period in time. So what's happening in Ukraine, the crisis, the World War III, that's having an effect on gas prices globally. It's also having an effect on customs duties, which in turn is having an effect on regular goods and services, because a lot of our inputs come from overseas. But I want to bring it even more local to actually I have a client. So he wants to go to Champs this year and sell. But him usually sell cran water. So simple vendor, I'm selling juice them and him cran water them. But he's thinking of selling the cran water for $200 now in the stadium, as opposed to maybe a $80 on the roadside or at the supermarket, because in the stadium you can't bring in bottles, so only the vendors can bring in bottles. So in the stadium, cran water suddenly becomes a premium product and gives him the opportunity to price upwards. He's even going as far as creating combos. So he want to sell a combo deal with the umbrella, because when you're in the bleachers and the hot sun, it's another consideration. So you can buy a combo deal and you get your patty, your umbrella, and your cran water for a premium money. But people who are got Champs now are going to walk with money because they anticipate, say,
right,
to spend. So him can do that on the day at Champs, but after Champs, if you book him on the road Monday, you can expect him to still have that deal going on and still expect those price points to be viable.
Same cran water, same vendor, different price.
A different price.
So that's dynamic pricing. It's the same way if you buy the water in a supermarket, it costs one price. If you buy it at Champs, it costs another price. If you buy it at a resort, it costs a completely different price. And it's supply and demand as well. Like you mentioned, if you can't get it at that location, if you have another supermarket across the street, then that determines the price. So dynamic, seasonality is a part of that too.
Yeah, man. All right, you mentioned resort. Can you guys recall in the midst of the pandemic when the government shut down the entertainment sector? And, because of that, people's behavior changed. So they started to find ways to entertain themselves at home. But the hotels now responded by cutting their prices. Particularly RIU and Royalton, I remember, cut their prices because they found a loophole in the system where they could still operate, because the resort can be a temporary home, if you think about it. And that actually caused a significant influx. I remember last year around Labor Day, there were scores of vehicles going to the North Coast to take advantage of these deals, because the hoteliers saw the opportunity, cut them prices wicked, and pull in a demographic of people that probably wouldn't have been able to afford a vacation at that time typically, but consequently able to do so because of the situation. So just like Champs, just like Ukraine, the pandemic was another situation that allowed for dynamic pricing. Christmas is a popular situation that people use to apply dynamic pricing. Back to school is another popular situation. So there are different seasons and situations that if you pay attention to, you can capitalize on the dynamic pricing.
Yeah, and I think tourism industry has always known about and always practiced dynamic pricing, because you always have the off season, the peak season, high season. So during the winter tourist season, you're gonna pay a premium to stay at the same hotel as opposed to maybe summer where it might be cheaper for you. And the airlines do it too. The airline, if you want to travel on Christmas Day or near to Christmas, oh my gosh, the price is jacked up ridiculous, as opposed to a less trafficked time of day, time of week, time of day, time of month, time of year. You may be able to get deals. And so look at what those companies do and possibly consider the same type of strategy for your business if it applies, especially if you have a seasonal product or a product that's in demand seasonally, like Christmas cake. PriceSmart still sell Christmas cake all through the year. I don't know if they do dynamic pricing, but Christmas time would be a time to, charge a little bit more. All right. Suzette wants to know, how do I know if I'm overpriced?
Right. So to know if you're overpriced is to know how your customers respond to your product or service. So a product that's overpriced is not flocked in the marketplace. Those are products that people walk past and don't look at for more than a couple of seconds. If you are struggling to make sales, or struggling to scale, or struggling to grow your revenues, then that might be because there's a mismatch between your price and your customer. So I would revert back to the fundamentals to look at who your customer is, or who your customers are, and look at what your product and service is. And then ensure that what you're selling is to people that are willing and able to spend the money for it. Because if you get that mismatch, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where you feel like you're overpriced, and it's really just you not selling to the people who have the money to buy it.
I feel like for me, Jermaine, one of my issues has been, how do I know that I'm underpriced? I feel like when a client says okay too quick, like you must be underpriced. Why did they say okay so fast? They didn't try negotiate or nothing? No, man, maybe you weren't charging enough. So how do you know?
How do you know if you're underpriced? I think the same approach would apply, but you can be creative at the negotiation table by entering the negotiation first and foremost with a ceiling of how much you are how much are, well, it wouldn't be a ceiling, it would be a floor. How little you are willing to take for that product and service, and bargain for way more than that. So start out at the top of the limit, and then you push them and draw them out for them flex, and every time them try flex and go lower, you lick them with a value point. Well, if we go lower there, we're going to take off this, and if we go down here, so we're going to take off that, and if we go way down here, so they're only going to get this, so put them in a space where they have to now consider if getting this thing cheap is worth the trouble of paying for the additional expense that it's going to cost me anyway. And that's why you box them into just paying what you're actually worth.
So should you have different tiers of pricing for
Yes.
whatever you're offering?
Yes, that's a strategy that that I use with a lot of my clients. Create tiers and then create a dynamic tier as well. So for people who feel like them don't fit into one of the tiers and want to customize something, then present that custom option as a premium offering. And that way now you package customization as a premium offering and force people into only considering the standard.
Right. What about asking what's your budget?
You see, that
depends on what you're offering, right?
Yeah. But and it also depends on who you're targeting to, Kalila. So if you're targeting a customer segment that you know for sure are price sensitive, then I think it's a courtesy to ask them what their budget is, but it should never be a reason to undersell. If their budget is below your value, then move on. They're not the only customer in the marketplace, and sometimes they might be trying to bluff, might be trying to draw you out to see how far down will she go. And sometimes you have to stand firm. You have to believe in yourself, people. If you know that you have a good product and you know you're putting the work to get this product to market, then believe in that secret sauce. And if people don't want to buy it, then they can go next door. But there's always a customer out there for your product. Yeah.
Great advice. We have one final question to take, and this one comes from Camille, who says, with inflation increasing and a jump in interest rates, should businesses prioritize breaking even over profit for the time being?
All right. So
basically just trying to survive, at least for now, until things get better.
Yes. I mean, if that's your predicament, then yes. Because what I'm anticipating coming out of this pandemic economically is I think we're going to go into another boom, another phase where the economy is going to open up and spending is going to increase, and people are going to be cash rich and ready to spend. But you have to be prepared to weather that storm if you're in a position where you're affected by these variables, because these are very specific variables, and some businesses, quite frankly, still making money. KFC down the road, the line, I'm still long, pandemic or no pandemic. So again, depends on the industry. But if that is your situation and this is how you're being affected, I would say try and weather the storm as best as possible, because brighter days are coming, believe me.
Yes, we have to trust and believe that we are going to survive indeed. I do think that we are finally on the tail end, fingers crossed, knock on wood, finally on the tail end of this pandemic, and we can come out much stronger. So we have reached the close of today's session. It's definitely been a very engaging one. I liked all the questions that came in. A lot of you had many questions, so we thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that the information was informative and useful to you, and that we've given you some very good insight to help you price and profit. I'd also like to thank, of course, Jermaine Bryan from JBDC for joining us. And of course, special thanks to Quartz Ready Cash for providing such useful space for our SMEs. And in case you're wondering, no, I did not forget. So, who is the winner of our fabulous prizes today? So, we had a $50,000 shopping spree right here at Quartz. And the winner of that shopping voucher, somebody who logged in and stayed on, is, give me a drum roll, Jermaine, Troy Smith. Congratulations, Troy. Woo! Congratulations. So we're going to reach out to you in the chat. So stay with us, Troy Smith. You have won that $50,000 Quartz shopping voucher. And now for our other big prize of the evening. And that is the lucky winner of a free business consultation. That winner is, and this is for early registration, Winifred Anderson. Congratulations, Winifred. You registered early and you have now won a free business consultation. I say premium.
Premium business consultation.
A free business consultation. And congratulations to you. So please send us a private message with your name and your number, and a member of the team will reach out to you to make the necessary arrangements. And remember, if you are a micro business owner seeking support, visit us at readyfinancecaribbean.com, or you can send a WhatsApp message to 876-562-1635. That's 876-562-1635. We also have another number, 876-492-3192. That's 876-492-3192, because Quartz Ready Cash is ready when you are. Thanks for watching. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Stay safe, and until next time.